Welcome to ISELP In Motion, our latest episode that we're going to talk about as we interview interesting personalities and people around the world, and particularly in the area of equine sports medicine. But today we're going to talk to someone who is a friend and a hero of mine, and that is Dr. Gemma Campling of Worldwide Vets. And Gemma has been someone that I've known for a while and does some very interesting things around the world in veterinary medicine. So welcome, Gemma, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you do.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Absolutely. I think I've known Gemma for about 3 years, four years now, and she first came on our radar when we were talking to people that were doing something about the animals after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And the plight of the animals was really something, and it was very compelling to a lot of people. And then I met Gemma, who's actually a veterinarian who was on the ground doing something about it, not just being concerned and giving a few dollars here and there. And so, Gemma, I know you got involved in that, but let's back up a little further, because clearly you're doing a lot of things. Worldwide Vets are in a lot of countries. You still have a major presence in Ukraine, but how, I guess, let's back up, and in your journey, how did you get there? How did you start out into veterinary medicine?
Absolutely. Well, I was never destined to be a vet, actually. Everyone always says, they knew from 5 or 2 years old that they were desperate to be a vet, and I didn't have that as a child. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was obsessed with animals, obviously, and looking back, there was clues. I would weigh my pets every week and take measurements and come up with different plans for their care and all sorts of things like that. But I didn't, I'll be really honest, I was really bad at chemistry. And I thought this was going to be a hindrance. So I was hoping to go into psychology. I love helping people, understanding people, and trying to make an impact in the world. That's quite important to me. So I had horses. I'm a big horse lover myself, and had horses through my teenage years. And unfortunately, I had a horse that had to be euthanized when I was 17. And ended up working at the local vet practice to pay off the vet bill, as you do. And it was in those months that I actually saw the reality of veterinary medicine and, the difference one veterinarian can make on a community and people. And I thought, gosh, if I could do this is a real impactful thing. So to my school's dismay, I pulled out of my degree a few weeks before the deadline of application, reapplied for veterinary medicine and got given the place, and went to Nottingham University in the UK.
Wow. But now, obviously, you're in a global practice, because Worldwide Vets that you've founded is all over the world. How did you move from being a new grad to a founder of a veterinary organization that does welfare and issues that help horses all over the world? How'd you get there?
So actually it was before I was a new grad. So in my years before university, I took 2 years to travel, which I think was the best life decision I made. And I really recommend it to young people and people leaving school. Go do some travel, go explore, get off your normal circuit. And I went to Southern Africa, and I was over in India. And everywhere I went, I just saw animals having a terrible time. And one that really stuck with me was a little black dog who promptly got named Blackie, which maybe wasn't so original in hindsight. But in Blackie, now that I'm a veterinarian, I understand he had a degloving injury. He'd obviously been run over, and the bone was sticking out of his back leg, and he was hopping around in the Himalayas in India, and I was just devastated, especially before you go through vet school and you become used to seeing these things.
Yeah.
And I just I have to do something to help this poor guy. And I phoned this was before internet on your phone days, so I went to the internet cafe, tried to find charities that would take him, and there was no one. They were too far, there wasn't enough money, and there wasn't enough support. And I think that was the day I then had to get on a bus and leave that area. And I have never lived it down that I left this poor dog, without doing something for him. And I just took that with me and thought, right, what's the next step to being able to help the next Blackie? And that was to come up with a way to bring care to animals. So when I was a second-year vet student, actually, I founded Worldwide Vets as an organisation because all of my colleagues wanted to travel, and the people I'd met travelling wanted the help and the support and the manpower. And so it seemed a really great way to bring all of this together with the experience I had and the knowledge of people and charities around the world to create something succinct and together that would really help a lot more animals.
And that's, we all have the individual stories of an animal that stuck with us and in our career, and often numerous ones. And but now, back to Worldwide Vets. How many areas of the world do you serve?
Yeah, so we now work in 10 different countries. Yes. In South America, Central South America, we do Guatemala and Peru, wildlife in these areas, conservation and animals that are pulled out of illegal trafficking and wildlife trade. Southern Africa, which is my heart home. For me, Southern Africa is the most beautiful place and the most inspirational and beautiful area of the world. We work in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia, and on Zanzibar, in Tanzania. Our disaster response is running in Ukraine and then over in Thailand and India, over in Asia. So it's quite a wide range now. It's grown somewhat.
But now here's the question. Where do you live now?
That's a difficult one.
Besides an airport.
Yeah, an airport. Where my bag is. So I would say I live in Zimbabwe. This is, where I base myself when I do get an opportunity to go home. My parents are in the UK, so I try and swing by the UK on flights and take a couple of days out of the airport en route through to stay in touch with everyone. But it's difficult working in a global organisation where you're on the ground and you're at the forefront of the impact. It keeps you moving. It could be hard to find time to get home. Yep.
And time to have a break.
A what?
We all need a breather now and again.
Absolutely.
So now, one of the things, some of the listeners here in the ISELP In Motion will be listening. They'll be in fairly high resourced veterinary areas, and where the question is, okay, well, we've got a lame horse and we're blocking it and we're x-raying it, we're ultrasounding it. Do we need to go do CT or do we need to do MRI? Now, obviously, some of the areas that you've named here are not going to be as highly veterinary resourced. So how do you deal with that? How do you work through that?
Absolutely, yeah. It is a challenge, and I would say it was almost something that pulled me out of this sphere as a young veterinarian, the frustration and the lack of resources to be able to help animals in the gold standard that we learn in university. And the temptation is sometimes just to throw the towel in and go, well, I can't do it right, so I don't do it, and walk away from that. And what I think I've learned over the years, I'd like to say I've got wiser, but some people might argue, is that you can make a huge difference without gold standard, and it's not always a choice. And sometimes just doing something can be better than maybe doing everything that you were ever taught in vet school as the best way. So, for instance, in Zimbabwe, there's a lot of the common opioids and analgesia that isn't readily available. There's a couple of digital X-rays available within the whole country. There's absolutely CT or MRI, obviously. So sometimes the workups, aren't as easy. In Ukraine, if we're going out to, let's say, translocate a horse from the front line, you can't just go and do your job at the speed you want to do it. You have to work around bombing, you have to work around air sirens, you have to work with the military. So it can be quite complex, and you don't always necessarily do things exactly how you hoped. You need a plan B and C and D, and sometimes you make plan E. But yeah, that's certainly a challenge of the work that we do.
Well, and I was interested in talking to you, and you were talking about the, traveling back to Ukraine, and that the hotel you're going to stay in had just recently had a drone attack 50 yards away.
A couple of hours ago, yes.
And I think that's astounding. You know, I may worry about a tornado alert, but that's not quite the same as being in a combat area. How do you deal with the added? I mean, you're already working hard, stressed out, working on animals, and you know, like we all are in veterinary medicine sometimes. You know, even though it's a very gratifying business we get to do, it's still a lot of stress. But you have the added, your vets in Ukraine are dealing with, I've got to go to a bomb shelter. I've got to stop what I'm doing and go take cover and protect my life. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think one of the videos actually of our work that went viral was me in the middle of surgery having to climb into a mechanics pit and carry on my surgery on the side of the mechanics pit because they were bombing very close to us, and we did think the roof was going to come in. So maintaining sterility and getting in a pit is not something I had done before. We have complications like if we're trying to move around on the front line, we can't go down certain roads because it's direct line of fire to opposition forces. We have to park on the far side of a building always to where you think opposition forces will be, because if they fire a missile, you know, you want them to hit a building first, and your vehicle, you know, is on the other side of that. When we do our trap neuter release, you can't have civilians queuing on the road because drones have video cameras and they look for pockets of people to target. So you have to find somewhere with an overhang or have people coming in a very structured rotational system. And it really adds quite a complex situation. But I think we've learned a lot. You know, you always have to be open to learning from the people on the ground. And this is so important with this work. You know, you can't just come in as a savior and say, well, I'm here now and, you know, it's fine, because you need the community knowledge. You need to know where the missiles are, where the landmines are, where the tripwires are. You need to speak to the military and the army and pull all their knowledge. And they are so thankful, a little bit disbelieving sometimes that we're there to do that work, but always very ready to help and assist and support and move us in and out and help with supplies. And you know, we're also able to take down a lot of equipment when we do that. So we do drop off our surplus supplies to the military and the human side of things, and they do the same for us. They get donations maybe that are better for the animals, and they will send that our way. So it's a really beautiful collaboration of everyone in a wildly disastrous situation just trying to do the best that they can for the people in the community.
And I know you acquired a truck and a trailer. And that, do you ever worry about that, because it's a large truck and a large trailer being a target? Or
yeah, absolutely. So we were very lucky to be donated a mobile vet unit, which is towed by an American Dodge Ram, which we go around Ukraine with to be able to reach these difficult areas. And we had a long debate with the Ukrainian and international military and special forces. Do we put ambulance on the top? Do we put a red cross on the top? Do we put a QR code? And the conclusion was none of it's going to help you. In fact, it might make it more of a target. Keep it simple. So we do have veterinary on the side of the vehicle, and we work with that. But there's certain areas, you know, depending on the day and the month and the military situation, that we won't take that unit. Right on the front line, we'll leave it further back, and we'll actually drive in civilian cars, in civilian clothes, and go into a building where there's more protection from shrapnel and bombing and and so on, and actually work in a building.
Now, I remember the video that you were talking about, and I can't remember whether you were working on a cat or a dog.
It was a cat, yeah.
It was a cat, and that's what I thought. And so in the video, you guys were taking cover down in the mechanics pit, and the area was shaking a little bit from the missile coming nearby. And I was showing that video to a colleague, and I go, isn't that amazing? And he looks at me and he goes, Kent, I don't know that I like any cat that much to do that. And I go, well, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think Gemma does.
I like that cat. I don't know. That cat was called Patch, actually, which is one in Ukrainian. But it's not about one cat.
Right.
Right? It's about a team of people who are not Ukrainian necessarily. Now most of our team is fully Ukrainian, but at the time we were primarily volunteers who felt enough about the situation to say, this isn't right, and what can I do? And to come. And you don't have to be on the front line to bring that hope and that realization. When we run our volunteer missions, we have vets from the States, from the UK come and volunteer with us in the West. We don't go anywhere we're expecting any military action. But people seeing us come, it gives them hope. And it gives them thankfulness. And it just, sometimes on the front line of conservation, poverty, war, everywhere, you can feel really alone and hopeless. And actually when teams come in to help, it gives a longevity and a power and an energy to keep fighting, be that the war, be that, the situation, the political situation. And it really unites people. And so, less about the one cat and more about the global impact for me. Yeah.
Well, I think that the other thing we talked about, and I had the opportunity to sit with you and a little bit and review. You've got a YouTube channel.
Yes.
And some amazing videos that you had, and one of them that really stuck with me that was the dehorning project you're doing in now that's Namibia.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, so we do a lot of wildlife work. Having spent that time in Southern Africa in my sort of gap years, I'm going to say I love Africa, and I think the conservation of this continent is really important. Everyone who comes to Africa, and if any of you have been to Africa, you might know this, once you go, when that's in your blood, you now love Africa. It changes your whole life. There's just something about this place. So it's very important for us to conserve this, and it's the heritage of, our globe. So we do a lot of work with conservation, with removing snares, with translocating animals to be able to increase the bloodlines. And as we all know, rhinos are being poached very badly for their horn, which can fetch $50,000 per kilo on the illegal market. So,
and where's that horn going? What drives that cost up and makes it illegal?
Yeah, so everything that is in short supply has a value, right? So it's very difficult to get, and people risk their lives to kill rhinos to do this because the money is good. So the local people are breaking in through the fence line, shooting the rhino dead or immobilizing it with drugs they've got illegally, in which case it's conscious and can feel, and then removing the horn, normally by hacking with an axe. And then it can go anywhere, but it often goes sort of the eastern side, and people are using it, believing it helps with everything from infertility to cancer to it makes a great bracelet. You can get a rhino horn bracelet. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, and obviously it does none of those things.
Right.
But as a result, the rhino numbers are decreasing.
Right.
These animals are being killed in a brutal way for their horn. So one of the good management techniques across the reserve is to remove the horn, so that the
poachers have nothing to get.
Exactly. And it has to be done quite regularly, every second year, because it can regrow. We can't take it low enough without damaging the horn plate and the skull. So we can take this off every second year. It's a dart. It's a brief immobilization. It's a great opportunity to do a health check on the animal, any DNA sampling. Most of the rhinos have a DNA sample in a national bank, so that if the horn is found somewhere, we can track it back to which reserve it's happening on.
And then I assume you chip them and that sort of thing when you're doing all that.
Exactly, yeah. Chip it, pass it to government into storage, and however it needs to be managed. And we're doing this by having people come out from the States and join us on a race-accredited course that we've built around this. And we talk about rhino conservation, wildlife management. We talk about colic in rhinos, sand impaction in rhinos, facial nerve blocks in reconstructing rhino faces when they've been poached. How can you rebuild that like you would with an equine?
Right.
Because they are essentially a horse. There's a rhino.
Right,
Sort of a horse.
Greg, they're monogastrics, right?
And the thing is, they heal like a horse.
Right.
Right. So the horse's lower limb, we all know, terrible healer.
Right.
Rhino's face, terrible healer, and they tend to rub it on things. It's a wild animal. So the Johan Maria, Saving the Survivors that we work with, and all these teams in Namibia, they are coming up with these amazing methods of trying to care for these animals after poaching. But the most important thing is to do it before.
Right.
Get that horn off.
Preventative.
That animal's life might be saved.
Right.
And obviously it costs a lot. You have to hire the helicopter and the drugs and the medicines and the national parks. So,
Yeah, I remember watching in the video, the helicopter was the one shooting the dart with the atorafine in it,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And then your crew was following closely behind, so as soon as it got ready, pretty immobilized but not down, then the crew would
Rushes
descend
in.
upon it.
Yeah, exactly. So because they can run quite far, and you never want to stress an animal more than you need to, and you certainly don't want to lose track of them when they've got atorafine already injected. So the helicopter will dart, and then the ground team of our race delegate vets and technicians will then come in and manage the groundwork. So the helicopter will land off in a safe space, which can be close and it can be quite far if it's rocky or trees. And the team will come in and start monitoring, get the pulse oximeter on, oxygen, take the DNA samples and do everything with that rhino to be able to get it up and out as fast as possible. So it's a really hands-on experience for people that have never possibly even seen a rhino before, maybe just in a zoo, to actually be touching it, treating it, and part of its care and its potential safety is really awesome.
And I saw in the video you train them beforehand, and so everyone has a job and an idea of how they're going to do that job, and then
Exactly.
then they're also being watched over. I could tell by your senior people.
Diligently watched over, yeah.
Yeah, and but then I loved it. I enjoyed watching it, and you guys went about it in a very businesslike manner. But then I think toward the end, I think it was on that video, you had kind of bloopers.
Yes.
And where, this moment where clearly the rhino had gotten up before anyone expected and people fleeing the area.
Yeah. We like to say in wildlife work, expect the unexpected. Because nothing, you're trying to do and it's like equine medicine, right? You hope that if you're anesthetizing a horse in the field, it's going to go down in a certain way. And we all know that sometimes they don't, or they react differently, or rhino, there's so many more complicated, all wildlife, so many more complications. There's the potential for them to go down a slope and become less accessible, go near water, run further than we want them to, all sorts of challenges, run at fence lines. So, yeah, they wake up incredibly fast from the reversal of the atorphine. So, but sometimes even faster than fast. So we like to be on our toes. And that's what I love about wildlife work. It's the variety and the fact that you just have to expect everything and just take what comes at you in just such a beautiful wild environment and be so humbled by nature and the animals that you're working with.
Well, I have gotten to work on a rhino once. And I was at the Phoenix Zoo, and the zoo vet was on vacation, and I was filling in for her. And dad rhinoceros had pitched baby or accidentally over the end of the moat, and then there was a broken digit. And so I got to go x-ray it and work on it. And of course it was cute as all get out. And it, certainly was easy to manage because it was a baby. And we cast it, and then, you can't really, even in a zoo setting, you can't go, oh, by the way, make sure they don't rub at that and put them in quiet stall rest and that sort of thing. That's just not an option. They're still a wild animal, even though they're in captivity. And of course, when they're not in captivity, all bets are off, and that animal's going back to the wild and do its thing. And whatever you did, better work that way.
Yeah, it's a difficult shotgun approach for wildlife, because you do get this one opportunity, and the next time you want to touch it, it's another anesthesia or immobilization. So you have to really plan in advance. You have to extrapolate the knowledge that you've got. You have to phone a friend, and beforehand, and speak to all your colleagues. And but it comes down to no one else is going to help that animal if you don't help it. And that's the sort of circle round, with the horses that we work with in Egypt at the pyramids. You can't always do what you want to do, which is put it on box rest for 6 months.
Right.
It has to work. The family need this animal to earn food, to put their children through school. So you do what you do for that wildlife, for that horse, for those dogs and cats that have to go straight back onto the front line. And you just put your best foot forwards and do the best thing you can do and sort of go to bed each night knowing it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been there. So.
Well, I've never gotten to go on a trip like what you're describing, which sounds fascinating, go and get to be a veterinarian and help wildlife. I did another stint on a zoo animal, and it was a giraffe, and it was the baby was quite sick and not doing well, and mom was worried but would let us get in there and work. And so that one was fascinating because I treated it and it did get better. And you could see it get stronger, but it was so nice to work with and so lovable. And I had pictures of my son with it and everything. And then the day that it decided, it reminded us that it's a wild animal, and it proceeded to knock the snot out of all of us.
As it was feeling better.
And we rapidly said, I think we've been successful here. I think we're going to call this a win and let it go. But you do it in so much wilder situations.
There's always, if the animal is being nice to you and you think that you feel safe around it, they're sick.
Yeah.
So you've got a problem. As soon as they start becoming mean and nasty and putting your life in danger, you know you've done your job. And it's wild again and it's ready to go, or healthier.
So, Gemma, I guess let me rephrase this. How would what motivates people to volunteer, to go be a vet, join you guys in the wild with your welfare work? What motivates them? And then if they are motivated, how can they go about it?
Absolutely. So we get a real range of people coming out to volunteer with us and to do our race accredited courses. We have vet students and tech students come on some of the courses which are specifically designed for that. And then we have qualified vets and technicians come and help us treat horses in Egypt, help us do spay neuter in Thailand and in India and so on. I think, sometimes we all love our job, right? We all love being vets and it's not an easy job, but sometimes it can become mundane, it can become lackluster, and I often find that sort of mid to later career professionals are sometimes just looking for something totally different, out of their comfort zone, maybe to come and work, translocating elephants in Africa for a week, not because they want to become an elephant vet, because they want to step out of their day-to-day practice, learn something brand new, exciting, and inspiring, and just find some of that wild excitement for medicine again, and to combine that with travel, a chance to meet like-minded people who also love helping and travel somewhere away from everyone and everything that's comfortable and your sort of normal world is so refreshing. And in this, world that we're living in now, there is so much pressure on us vets. And on a mental health front, we're coming up with all of our challenges, and just stepping back and going to do something different is so refreshing and so good for people's career and, to come home fresh after something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Actually, I talked with Tracy Turner recently, who's past president of AEP, and he really had done a bunch of that and done some of the equitarian initiatives and that sort of thing, and traveled widely and got to see different aspects of veterinary medicine and talked about how profoundly that affected him. And you can tell even from my little bit of zoo experience that I got, that's the stuff I remember. And so I think even for young veterinarians, but certainly for mid to older career veterinarians, I think to go do something like that, be excited about it again, not just kind of going through your appointments, and really having some enthusiasm to go do that and go help some animals you've never touched or seen before. It's an amazing opportunity.
And people are so thankful. This is what I love about this work, especially in developing countries when Let's say in Southern Africa, we come out to a community and we're vaccinating horses and, helping them with some parasites. They will send often a whole delegation of school kids to come and do a cultural song and dance for us as a thank you. They'll bring us food and lunch. They will bring us drinks, which often involves the women from the community going and pumping it from a ground well. I don't know how many owners will bring you water from a ground well when you come out and give their horses dewormer, but probably not so many, or they walk 10 miles with your lunch. These people are so thankful for the help that you are bringing, that you're not being paid. It's not part of your job. You are showing them that you care, and that, sometimes they say, but you've come all this way. Why? And that's a difficult question to answer. And you say, well, I just want to help you. And that is an amazing feeling to people that, America, this, mighty place, they're coming here to my village to help me, and people care. And I think that is why people love doing this sort of volunteering work, because you're working with owners that are just so grateful.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You can do that, and you can see that in so many places around the world, and with the different animals. And I think, you've got an incredible perspective on that. And I think it's great that you share it. That Worldwide Vets does that, and has programs in a variety of different places and types that they can get involved in. And so maybe I'll get out there and, cut a rhino horn off sometime.
Keep threatening. But so if anyone that's interested in it, if it kind of is tugging at your heart, or it just is triggering a little something of interest in you, you can go and jump on our website. We have all of our volunteer projects and our race courses listed. It's worldwide-vets.org. And then from there you can find out about our work, the different places that we go, places that you can join us, how you can support financially. A lot of people support us by sending donations of supplies, secondhand equipment they're not using anymore. This is what keeps us going. It's a united effort to be supported. And I've just found vets, especially from America, are so helpful and supportive in this work. It really makes a huge difference.
Well, and I'm going to ask you that next, because I know that you've been now back here to Northern Virginia, where the ISELP administrative head is, and we've visited before, and you've had the opportunity to run into people and get a variety of things that helped you guys get going. And so why don't you talk a little bit about that and what Northern Virginia in that regard means to you?
It's so good to be back in Virginia. I love this place. This is just such a peaceful, beautiful, it reminds me of England, actually. It's sort of like home for me. So I met the ISELP team when I started working in Ukraine. And I think we had an awful lot in common, wanting to help animals, help horses. And so we started collaborating on raising awareness. This was the first aspect. And then how to get donations and supplies. And the biggest challenge that we face is coordination, I would say. Reaching new people that want to help and can help, because they're out there. There's a lot of people who see this work as impactful, but if I'm just running around on the front line in Ukraine or Egypt or Thailand, I can't meet those people. And ISELP has been transformative, actually, at helping me meet some amazing organizations. Through them, we've had Sound and Tech donate a radiography unit, which is out on the front line in Ukraine at the moment. Butterfly IQ, that is always in my pocket, that thing, the tiny little portable ultrasound. It's been under Amazonian manatee bellies on the Amazon River, and you name it, it's been everywhere, that thing. Organizations, vet practices, people who are able to donate supplies. This is really impactful in the work that we do, because we rely entirely on donation and support of organizations. In addition, Vetel were able to sponsor and send through radiography equipment to be able to help animals. PulseVet sent a fantastic shockwave therapy unit to be able to help with the healing of wounds for equines and for small animals. It's so wide-ranging. Leesburg police were sent the flak vests, this bulletproof body armor and helmets that our veterinarian team wear on the front line to keep us safe when we're in hot zones. So really, it's it's been an amazing collaborative effort.
Yeah, and I remember a dinner meeting we had one time with a group of individuals who were extremely helpful and generous with you, and who will remain anonymous, but they were able to help you get a truck, and that's what you pull your vet clinic through.
Yeah, so we ended up in a bizarre situation where we were so lucky to have been donated this mobile veterinary trailer from America, and this was, and still is, very busy in Ukraine helping animals, and then we didn't have a car to tow it, and so the chicken or the egg comes first, and so through that everything's one step at a time, right? If you have a car and no mobile trailer, you can't do your veterinary work. If you have a mobile trailer and no car, you can't do your veterinary work. So bringing that all together through the help of people in this area was really transformational in the work we're doing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Got us out on the ground so much faster. We are on our 40,000th treatment in Ukraine since the start of the war.
Wow.
And 10,000 spay-neuter vaccines done since the start of the war, 4,000 of those last year. And even this year in February, on the 24th, on the anniversary of the war, we had a great big spay-neuter mission, and we were trying to do 500 animals. It ended up at 488 because of some sneaky cats. Always the cats. In a single day, which is the first time that a collaboration of that size has been done across, we did it in the four corners and the center of Ukraine all on one day.
And do you still, I know in the beginning of the war, there were these horrible stories I remember of horses just being turned out and, literally starving half to death, and you having to be very careful about refeeding them and getting them back. Do you still, I'm sure you don't see animals like that anymore, but do you still see some horses and get to work on horses?
Absolutely. So we have committed to vaccinating and deworming 300 horses every year, and we've done this since the start of the war, and with everyone's support we can keep that going. We did them just before Christmas. So this is horses that are doing HIPAA therapy, horse-based therapy for kids from the front line, for soldiers with PTSD, family ponies, and everything really in between. We see general first opinion cases. The biggest challenge is a lot of the vets are in the military now, and Ukrainian vets are excellent, but a lot of them are in the military. So we know with horses always something wrong. So a huge lag in the availability of veterinarians, in their time to be able to help a lot of those animals. So with everything, education, empowering local veterinarians is absolutely central and the only sustainable way, in my opinion, for charity to make long-term gain. We can come in and treat a horse, but a best case scenario, you can only do that for so many years. You have to inspire the younger generation to become veterinary professionals. You have to help Ukrainian vets get knowledge and experience in those areas. So with the help of ISELP and the educational programs that they offer, we're able to give training on the radiographies that have been donated and help those vets learn more about how to help their own people.
Yeah, it's an incredible challenge, and I am proud to know someone who is actually doing it instead of talking about it. I remember the AEP after, and you were there, and it was a group. It was AEP, BIVA, ISELP was sitting in on that particular meeting, and you were first kept outside while there was discussion going on, and then you came in and talked, and then you went back outside again. And of course, I was in the meeting, and I'm remembering they're talking about some of the bureaucracy and the challenges of getting stuff across the border into Ukraine, and all of it was real world stuff. And then I just kind of raised my hand and said, "This is fascinating, but the person who just left the room is the only one who's been across the border. Everybody else, we've just all been talking about ways we can do it and what the holdups are." I said, I think we should really all work at supporting her, because she's not waiting around for what the roadblocks are. She's actually going in and doing it. And there was everybody looked at everybody else and they're going, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so, sometimes you, I feel like life aligns itself sometimes. Sometimes it's not the right moment to jump in and just go. And sometimes it just is. And you have to just kind of go with your heart and what you feel. And, some days we're on the front line every single day, and some days we're exhausted. And you have to pull your team back and say, okay, guys, let's take a week off. Let's move out of a hot zone. Let's, and then your colleagues or someone else who's going in, and you give them the support. Or, for me, going into Ukraine was just something that I felt I needed to do in that time. I watched videos of horses being turned out into the field and bombs landing each side. And I thought, if that was my horse, I would want someone to come and help me. And I had it in me at that time to go and give that help. But that doesn't mean that people that, that's just not their year or their month or their day. There's so many ways to help. You don't have to be the one running to the front line. I couldn't do anything of what I do without Beaver, AAEP, ISELP, all the individual donors, my volunteers, people that collect flea treatments for us, people that collect dewormers and ship it. And the organizational web is massive, and every single one of those people are absolutely vital. And people that never get a shout out, our advisors in Ukraine, our lawyers in Egypt, our accountants, God bless them, around the world who are dealing with all of this behind the scenes quietly, and really they're the heroes that keep everything going.
Yeah, but they don't get to make the really cool YouTube videos you do.
They don't have to wear a flak jacket and a helmet and stand in a pit. Yeah, they don't. Not often. Not often.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to end with, because I've got to do this, because with as interesting an individual as you, I've got to hear what your best animal story is.
Oh.
In veterinary medicine.
Best
We're
animal
going to say
story.
with veterinary medicine.
With veterinary medicine.
Yeah.
Okay. It has to be Blackie. My little Blackie from India.
And that's the one that inspired you.
Changed my entire life. And it changed it because I let it change it. I think that's really important. When you come across something like this, that you just feel it's your time to change. It's something that you can do. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Worldwide Vets I started off by sending one of my ex-boyfriends to a friend in Zimbabwe, and then it grows. So little steps and big impacts.
Well, and I think that's amazing, is that one animal and one experience with that animal changed your entire life and led to the organization that is benefiting thousands and thousands of animals worldwide.
Yeah, the doors will open if you let it.
So, way to go, Blackie.
Good Blackie. Good boy. Change the world. Yeah.
Well, Gemma, thank you. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, as always.
And we will look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you. I'm off to Ukraine this evening, so I'll let you know how the journey goes. We've got a long 2.5 days of travel ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you again for listening to ISELP In Motion, and we will see you next month.